As we already defined the strong light, now it's turn for the reflected light, which will be much softer than the previous. This light will work vice versa. We'll use rectangle tool and gradient to place it. You can play with shadows tonality around to see what effects could be achieved. All in all, initially Photoshop was meant to be a software mainly used by photographers, but the wide range of features it offers is extremely useful also for designers and illustrators. As always, hue saturation option is very handy for this purpose, as it can be used quickly, saving your time. You've just seen how I used red color for the initial gradient and then easily turn it into a bluish gray. The shadow in the upper corners of the letters looks way too dark and irregular from my point of view, so let's modify it. In a new layer, holding letter selection, take a large size of the brush and change its opacity to 20%. It will allow us to expand the shadow and make a really subtle diffusion. Don't forget about the upper part of the internal shame of O's. To make letters pop up, we'll need to leave soft white line around the upper shade to make letter form more consistent. We are working with shades in a separate layer, using big, soft, semi-transparent eraser over soft gray shadows. But the thing changes if we talk about superior edges of the letters. There should be used eraser with a smaller diameter and higher opacity. You can achieve a credible volume sensation by using only black and white colors. Added to the fact of being able to activate and deactivate the layer with tonalities whenever you need, it makes the task of creating a lettering much comfortable than if you were working by hand on metacrylate or so-called onion paper, as it was made time before. It's nice to finish one row and zoom out from time to time and see the difference you've created. Once finished this part, we can finally switch our attention to the details of our lettering. Let's start by adding glossiness to the central part of white letters. It will seem some kind of glass or plastic structures. Place white solid point on the upper extremes of each letter, then softly erase the lower part. The gloss over the plastic should follow the same logic as the shadows on the white parts, but taking into account that glossiness should be stronger and less diffused in order to generate convincing volume sensation. OK, I will make letters' inner lines wider by expanding their shape as to make them look powerful and highlight the glossy effect we are working on. In order to use this feature, go to the Select button, then select Modify option and then Expand. Put the measure you want your selection to expand around, then press Enter. The last thing to do is to fill the new selection with the color. As simple as this. Awesome! The effect we are looking for the remaining part of these letters is something resembling wasted metal.
full of scratches. So let's use distress brush another time, but now through applying grey color as a texture for a wasted varnish.
Placed randomly, grey texture gives a chaotic appearance to the letters. They seem wasted by time and weather, or whatever conditions are to be taken into account in space. You really do not need a wide range of brushes to achieve different visual effects. Theoretically, with a couple of them would be enough. If the tonality of scratches is too strong, modify it by using levels.
In order to finish this part and give even more volume to our metal letters, let's softly erase lower shadow on their border. It definitely busts the phrase. We achieve a sort of spaceship look. Take a look at the whole effect achieved by contrast between red distressed letters and the metal ones. It conveys a more complex message than if we had drawn the whole lettering using the same style.
At last, we are done with the letters volume. Let's get to the elements around lettering. Okay, first of all, let's concentrate on giving it some character. Select the bed shape and then, by using copy function, start multiplying baits and scaling them as to fit 4 in the same column. Duplicate, rotate, and place them around. These kind of things are the ones that make the difference between traditional drawing and digital drawing. On some occasions, digital makes your process faster.
When the whole surface is full of beds, take each one of them and flip it as to make this composition look chaotic.
Lettering can work well over a background with a plain color, as a charcoal lettering over the blackboard certainly does. But sometimes it's a good idea to play around with more elements, besides the letters themselves. It allows you to search different solutions and even make emphasis on illustration. Whereas we have solved all the problems related to the volume and line art, in fact, we haven't touched yet any colors beside black and white palette. Are you ready for the coloring part? Let's add some color to your composition. We are going to use a cool, trendy palette. First of all, change the color of the background to grayish turquoise by using hue saturation. Then let's work a little on the gradients. I thought you can make it directly on a new layer by using Gradient tool. Instead, I'll show you another feature offered by Photoshop called Gradient Fill. You can find it in the same menu where Levels layer is. Different options appear in the windows that pops up. There are a series of predetermined gradients you can choose from, or establish one of your own. You can also establish the angle you want it to have and gradient style. I've chosen 45 degrees of inclination for this gradient. It provides sensation of dynamism and makes lettering vivid. As you can see, the gradient I have selected goes from red to green when blending mode is placed on normal. But if we use the other options in the blending mode, something different will happen. Particularly, the one we are looking for is difference, and as what it makes is convert colors to their opposite, guess what? We'll get pink to turquoise transition. Right what we needed.
Now, it's the one that should change its color to be integrated in the composition.
Turn it into turquoise, for example, by using the hue saturation window. It should be lighter than the background, in order to stand out.
Now it feels like white letters should have slightly darker tonality. We can create another layer and give soft gray tonality above it, and change slightly its coloring afterwards to the warmer color.
Use here the same method as before.
By using brush with low hardness and slightly darker gray tonality, you'll easily generate perception of the third dimension. Just for instance, compare the effect of colored parts with the ones with no color on it. By doing so, you can adjust with more precision the final effect you are looking for. It can even make you change your mind about the whole composition, and not only the part you are working on.
Actually, the tones of I'm Stealthy look better over the background when they have a slightly reddish tone. It is due to the fact of this element being placed in front of the composition, added to the contrast created between background colder tones and letter's warmer tones, which helps us to bring sentence to the foreground. Moreover, it emphasizes the volumes of the white letters. We are getting closer to the end. I'm sure you can feel it. So, see you in the next lesson.